Hello kids, Assalamu alaikum. This is Kanwal Auntie with our new story, A Matter of Balance, written by Margaret Mooney. At 5 o'clock on the afternoon of June 30, 1859, there was a loud gasp from the huge crowd gathered at the Niagara Falls. True to his word, Francois Gravelet was attempting to cross the gorge of the Niagara River on a tightrope. Gravelet held a 12-meter pole to help him maintain his balance. But Gravelet had been trained as a circus showman. He was not only going to cross the gorge, he was going to entertain the crowd as he did so. Every now and then, Gravelet stopped and swayed, waiting for the crowd to react. And react they did. There were loud gasps and shrieks from the crowds gathered at both the American and Canadian sides of the river. There were oohs and ahs as all eyes followed Gravelet's every step. Gravelet, then aged 31, looked such a tiny figure against the mighty Niagara Falls, which had already claimed the lives of so many daring stunt people. When the Great Blondin, as Gravelet later became known, reached the halfway mark, he lowered a bottle into the river, pulled up a bottle of water, and then sat down on the rope to drink the water. The gasps turned to shrieks and then to stunned silence. But there was more to come. Blondin stood up and walked towards the Canadian end of the tightrope. The crowd started to relax a little. Blondin was nearing shore. Then, all of a sudden, Blondin stopped. He turned a full backward somersault and stood on the tightrope as if he were simply taking a Sunday afternoon stroll. The crowd went wild. Some fainted. Others wished it were they who had the water to quench their tight throats. Others screamed or cried. And exactly 18 minutes after he had put his first foot on the rope, Blondin stepped onto the Canadian shore. He joined in the party held to celebrate his great achievement. Then he announced that he would go back the way he came. 7 minutes later, he was back on the United States side. News spread far and wide. Blondin was truly a great star. Even bigger crowds gathered each time it was announced he would cross the mighty river, and each crossing brought new challenges for Blondin and thrills for the crowds. Blondin crossed the rope on a bicycle. He pushed a wheelbarrow across the gorge. He walked across blindfolded and with his legs tied. And on one crossing, he stopped in the center to cook an omelette. Blondin liked the taste of success. He also enjoyed facing and overcoming new challenges. 6 weeks after the first crossing, Blondin announced that he was really going to test himself. He would piggyback his manager across the Niagara River. Over 100,000 people came to watch the crossing. At times, even Blondin must have wondered whether he would get his load safely to the other end of the rope. 6 times Blondin had to stop to rest. Each time his manager had to climb off Blondin's back and then climb back on so they could take another few steps. The crowd became quieter with each rest stop. They watched the last few steps with open mouths and wide eyes. They were so stiff with fear that when Blondin and his manager finally stepped ashore, there was silence before the crowd managed to cheer. But cheer they certainly did. They clapped and shrieked and sang. They cheered and shouted. They gathered around Blondin and his manager, almost pushing them back onto the tightrope. But Blondin's manager was not about to have a return crossing. Well, not on a tightrope. Many others have tried to imitate the great Blondin, but Francois Gravelet remains the greatest stuntman of the mighty Niagara.